UiPath now hires young software developers, young coders. Which are some of the skill sets that you guys are looking at?
Hire people for intelligence, EQ, collaborativeness, team spirit, humility, the ability to just grind and work hard.
Agentic AI, quite literally not a buzzword anymore at all. But how do you personally define it? And why is now its moment?
Is build agents that are simple, single-minded, incorporate them alongside deterministic pieces of software like robots.
Do you think we'll see, say, whole businesses, enterprises, units run by agents?
I think your big picture question though is will this happen? And I think the only correct answer is yes.
What is Agentic AI and what does the future kind of hold?
Agents use LLMs with tools to interact with the environment and accomplish outcomes.
Raghu, a very warm welcome to AIM Media House. We are absolutely delighted to be here, to have you here at Simulated Reality. How are you doing?
I'm great, and thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Pleasure is absolutely ours. You know, there's so much that I want to talk to you about. There's so much that I want to ask you. But first things first, welcome back to India for this event of UiPath. How does it feel every time you land back in India, be it whatever city it is? What's the feeling like?
The smells is the first thing, for better or for worse. But it's very fond. It reminds me of growing up here. You have nostalgia of these. When I'm in the US, I do visit India a bunch, a couple times a year. But it always is just the hustle and the bustle and the smells of the country is the vibrancy, the people, always so evocative, so colorful, is always gives me joy, right? The warmth, if you will.
Absolutely, the warmth. Yeah. Hey, but a little birdie tells me a lot of people have said as well that New York also smells, does it not?
It stinks. Exactly. When I say smells, I don't say stink. I don't mean stink.
Okay, so New York stinks, India smells. Yeah. And a lot of it is the masala, so we're good.
Yes.
We're fine.
Smells can be aromatic too.
Exactly. Yeah, the masala, the spices, the chai. When we put out on our socials as well, that we'll be doing this podcast with you, so many questions came in. Mm-hmm. So we know for a fact that it's not just the clients, but even all the people who are followers of the AI world and the tech world, mm-hmm. they know UiPath and they know UiPath's mm-hmm. path-breaking work very well. Mm-hmm. But for those, say, who might not be aware still, mm-hmm. if one is to ask you to explain in simple terms, say to explain to a class 10 student, mm-hmm. what is UiPath and what does it do?
Mm-hmm. So UiPath has been in the business process automation space for a long while. The company was founded by Daniel Dinas, a Romanian through and through, out of a small apartment in Bucharest. It took Daniel about 10 years to find product market fit in 2015 with this category called RPA, or robotic process automation. Robotic process automation is about taking tasks, specific tasks, repeatable manual tasks, and automating it so that humans could do higher value things, right? Those were the first 10 years of UiPath from 2005 to 2010 to find the product market fit, but also from 2015 to now 2025, what we call Act 1 is about productizing this robotic process automation space and making enterprises and businesses productive. And the company has grown a fair significant bit from like the first dollar earned in 2015 to a multi-billion dollar corporation, global corporation now.
In less than a decade.
In less than a decade. It's been quite a phenomenal ride. And it's quite something when you think about the roots of this company as a small Romanian shop from many years ago. So we are now in what we call our Act 2, new chapter of agentic automation, where we think that in order for us to help accelerate automation in the enterprise with robots and agents, we believe we have the opportunity to combine these two artifacts in one with humans in the loop and enable a new level of automation, new use cases, new intelligence, so that businesses can be even more productive. And so on. So UiPath is creating this category called agentic automation. With our vast experiences in doing processes in the past, and with our strengths in the enterprise, we believe that with the recent launches, we are the category leader in agentic automation, and we have the most complete offering in the automation space.
Absolutely. The location that we are here right now, this is Hilton in Bangalore, where the DevCon is happening. Bright lights, and it says itself, agents, robots, automation. Tell us a little about, say, one of the prime takeaways that people can have from this event. One of the major messages that you guys want to put out there.
Yeah, I think the biggest one is our narrative on, or our story for agentic automation is exactly the tagline that you see over there. Is the fact that robots, which automate deterministic parts of your processes. This is your flow logic. This is your rules-based logic, and agents which do more non-deterministic, more creative, more dynamic parts of your process, with humans who are managing exceptions, humans who are providing the supervision. So you take robots, you take agents, and you take humans, and you put them together, and then you have agentic automation. That is what we are about. And that is the one message that everyone should take away. It's the challenge with process automation is to putting these components together in a orchestration layer, where you can take a process, orchestrate across these entities, and ensure that you can automate your processes as effectively as you can. So that is our one big event, a big takeaway from this event.
Absolutely amazing. You mentioned AI agents. Automation, the fact that they are becoming autonomous now, so many of them working on their own, taking decisions on their own, so that humans can do more of the creative work, can do more of the work which takes more creative thinking and less of the mundane tasks. So on our channel itself, AIM TV, one of our major IPs is called Front Page. We make sometimes even 8 to 10 videos in a day. And those are all the key news and updates from the entire world of tech and AI. And sometimes 5 of them in a day are on Agentic AI. And so many similar comments that we get from the community that follows the world of tech and AI so closely is, can you tell us exactly what is Agentic AI? Yeah. So the simple question I'll ask you once again, say a lay person who's not aware of the terminology so much, if you can explain to that person what is Agentic AI and what does the future kind of hold?
I don't think you'll get two techies to agree on the definition of Agentic AI, but I'll give you mine, and I think it's generally aligned with how the automation industry, especially UiPath, defines it. Agents use LLMs with tools to interact with the environment and accomplish outcomes. What are LLMs? LLMs are large language models. They are grounded on English. They understand, they're probabilistic, and they do, to a large degree, next token prediction. And they're very probabilistic in nature, right? What are tools? Tools are ways with which you interact with the environment. What can large language models do? Large language models can take the user input as a prompt in plain English. If you use ChatGPT, you're typing in a text, that's part of the prompt that goes into how ChatGPT answers your question, right? And then tools are the entities or mechanisms with which you interact with the environment. You take actions, you retrieve information from the environment, or you add information to the environment. And the environment in your enterprise automations could be your CRM systems, your Workday or HR systems, and so forth. So agents then can take the user input, transform them to a set of actions, which then they use tools to interact with and accomplish the outcome that they have. They have dynamicism, meaning they can dynamically determine which paths to take, which tools to call, how to chain events and things of that nature. They may have memory. They can look at previous instantiations of agents, previous learnings, previous mistakes, and improve from them. They may have context. They may be grounded in enterprise data. So they may have information on what your product documentation is, or what your HR documentation is, or what your internal wikis have about the company and so forth, and they can be grounded on it, right? So context, memory, tools, and models work together to help solve problems, right? That's our naive, I guess, but boilerplate definition of agents that I think many people will agree with.
Raghu, I mean, what a ride it's been for you. Microsoft's semantic index, Meta's decision platform. You've built systems that are extremely complex, but also very human-centric as well. So what pulled you towards UiPath and this next wave of, say, intelligent automation?
Yeah, it's a question. It's something I think about too, a lot, even though I've been at UiPath now a year. I think the thing is there's two elements to any kind of a role or a job. One is, I think, chemistry is like, what is your alignment with your team, your organization, your leader, your manager, and in my case, even the C-staff, the C-suite, right? And the kinds of problems to solve. So when I was introduced to Daniel Dinas, this was 18 months ago. I think this was November of 2023 now. He's an engineer. I'm an engineer. And we hit it off. He came across as a humble, engrossed, curious person. He came across as a culturalist. I mean, he thinks deeply about how engineering teams should work, how product teams should work, how companies should work, how decisions should be made, how people should be enabled, what decisions is okay for it to be top down, what decisions are okay or should be made bottoms up, how should humans work together and collaborate, right? The intensity with which we work hard, make history, So I think through those conversations, it was very clear to me that there's a lot of alignment in how I thought about work and working in a technology company, how the kind of company that Daniel had created. And we just gelled. There was chemistry in those conversations, and I think on both sides, which is why I'm at UiPath. The second bit is the nature of the problem that we're trying to solve. Remember, this was 18 months ago when UiPath is still very much an RPA company, a robotic process automation company. Agents are the rage, are beginning to become the rage. LLMs are the rage and are beginning to become the rage. And the world is all inspecting what can LLMs do, what can agents do, how can the world be different, etc. Right? So Daniel at that time was formulating his ideas for an Act 2. Is that what does a post-agents, post-large language model world for AI, for UiPath look like? And I felt like with my experiences and the kind of company UiPath was in and the kind of culture that Daniel had in the organization, that it would be a moment for me at the career stage of my career that I was in to help drive a major transformation along with my peers and colleagues at UiPath, of course, to help transform the company from the Act 1 RPA to Act 2, which is agentic automation, which is RPA or robots alongside agents. So I think this opportunity to truly transform a sizable business alongside working with leaders who I felt like there was a significant chemistry with, solve problems, fight, yell even, but be humble, be listen, right? Even when you argue, I think is the kind of culture that Daniel has in the company, which resonates very strongly with mine, and that's how I work. So taken together, these two things got me to UiPath.
That's
long-winded answer, but I think that's the story.
All right, let's jump into today's very important theme: democratizing automation. Agentic AI, as you mentioned as well, quite literally not a buzzword anymore at all. But how do you personally define it, and why is now its moment?
I think there's a couple of things that are going on. I think what we saw about a year ago or 2 years ago is a lot of I think the word that we're going to use is AI washing. Is like there's a lot of hype about AI, the kinds of things that AI could do and the kinds of things that AI was really able to do. Right. So now obviously AI has been transformative for you and for me. I mean, if you've used your ChatGPTs of the world, if you've done research recently, if you've done customer research or customer support work, and so forth, AI has been education. AI has been quite the game changer in those things. But back office business process automations, AI is in the non-conversational spaces. AI has still not had the reach, if you will, or even the success as we predicted a couple of years ago. So what's happened in the last year is I think there's a lot of pragmatism in terms of where you apply AI and where you apply deterministic solutions, right? So as I mentioned earlier, business processes are fairly complex and they truly are very simple deterministic pieces there, right? Rules-based stuff, right? Don't agentify those pieces because those work with simple rules, right? And then you take a narrower thing which is non-deterministic, make them single-minded, meaning make that agent do that one thing specifically well, right? And I think the world, we've realized it for a while, and I think the world is realizing this is build agents that are simple, single-minded, incorporate them alongside deterministic pieces of software like robots, and together combine them to build something that works end to end. So I think this realization for us has been an eye opener and a game changer, quite honestly, where we now know, and many of our customers now know, how to incorporate agents in this unattended back office automations, which just previously we found challenging. Right. So that's the transition specifically for us as a company and our industry at large.
So one of the coolest shifts is how UiPath's opening up automation to not just engineers, but everybody. Tools like, say, Agent Builder, Autopilot are making it extremely accessible. So what's changed behind the scenes to make this possible, to make this happen?
I think we've always been a low-code automation platform, right? I think we've always, from when we found product market fit in 2015, it wasn't the professional developers writing, like we really catered to this category of developers that is understands code, but they use workflows and activities and drag and drop things in a canvas to construct their automations, right? That's been our strength, right? So even with Agent Builder, which is a product that we recently launched, we've taken very much a no-code approach, meaning help humans build higher quality agents with text, right? Guide them through an experience with which they could build more dependable and reliable agents, right? Autopilot is your assistant. It will help you build more dependable automations, right? So we've actually played to our strengths almost entirely. On the contrary, we're actually, we're seeing that the transition to agents in the enterprise, in some cases, not all, will be driven by professional developers, not your low-code developers, right? So in our keynotes today and in the bunch of announcements we made today, we have categorically stated that we will also support professional developers on our platform, so that if they used a pro developer frameworks, things like LangGraph and others, and bring that to a platform, we would be more than happy to accept that and orchestrate that via our orchestration product, right? So again, to recap, our strength is always been in low code and no code, and we play to that strength. And I think it's quite a strength, quite a formidable strength that we have. But we also want to now support pro developers in addition to that.
When you mentioned supporting pro developers, there's a very common question that we at AIM have got, be it for our on-stage events or the podcasts we shoot, the videos that we shoot, comments in these two, and responses from the audience members. And these are mostly from young developers who are either starting off work or they are studying now. That with so much of the low-code, no-code platforms now being able to create such great platforms, a similar question that comes to us is now, will training ourselves, say in Python, say in Java, training ourselves in actual coding, will that even be a skill set that important in the very near distant future, or will that be a thing of the past very soon?
I think there's a gradient here. In the very distant future, I think it's pretty obvious. I think that these skills may not be as important or necessary. I don't know what that time period is. Is it 5 years out, 10 years out? It's very, very hard to say, right? I think in the immediate future, in the next few years at least, as far as I can thoughtfully see, I expect these agents, these coding agents, the Cursors, the Windsors of the world, the V0.devs of the world, the vibe coding stuff that you probably heard about, right? They get you started in some cases, right? But they struggle when things get complex. When you're connecting multiple systems, they do try to fall apart. When that happens, you do need that experience of understanding code and proficiency in that, so you can work with it and move along. So I think these things are game changers for the reason that they get you started quickly, right? In the case of Cursor, they help you build test cases very quickly. Before you'd have to build those things by hand, but now these things just spit them out, and all you have to do is approve and accept things, right? You can iteratively build your code, right? But you must understand coding before you accept or reject what the tool is recommended. So I think in the next 3 to 5 years, we imagine a future where humans will write text to iteratively build code, but you must still understand code, because you cannot trust what the models spit out consistently. But as we approach, and this is such a fast evolving field, it'll be, I'd hazard a guess, I'd say 5 years, we get to a point where you start scratching your head and wondering, right? How much of the coding knowledge is necessary? Now, your question might well be like, what happens to software engineers?
Exactly.
Right? Is that a thing? I think that never goes away. I think like, what was the purpose of software engineering? It was to build products. It was to understand what your customers needed and quickly build software to meet your customers' need. So I think what will happen with this shift is the world will get better software faster. You still need software engineers. You may not necessarily be writing like low-level Python code.
Correct.
But the practice of software engineering is just not writing code. It is about product. It is about the customer. It is about technology. It is about your infrastructure. Those kinds of things you still need engineers to do. So I think the world will be better off. I think software engineers will be better off because you will do the things that require creativity, right? You build better products. You build them faster. You know how Andreessen Horowitz 20 years ago, there was a software will lead the world memo. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you and your viewers to read it. You'd think it might be dated. I don't quite think it is, because I think in this world where we're transforming software development with agents and tools like Cursor, I think software will just eat the world faster, right? And it will mean you need more software developers who have a slightly different skill than necessarily writing low-level code. So you move up the stack. If you're purely hiring a developer for like, hey man, do you know Java? Like you'll probably stop hiring them in 5 years. But you still want to hire these very creative professionals who went to college, who have a degree, who are creative, and who can build software faster.
Absolutely. Yeah. So safe to say that the base of writing good code, writing beautiful code, and when a developer or a coder knows that is not, at least anytime soon, going away.
I don't think it's going away anytime soon.
You know, there was this podcast that I was hosting for Simulated Reality itself with one of the industry leaders at AWS. His name is Mark Schwartz. He's the enterprise strategist from US. And he had said that at this point of time, we are quoting him, at this point of time, I don't think AI can write beautiful code yet. What's your take on that?
When was this podcast?
6 months back.
6 months. The world has changed in 6 months.
It's
there's a model called Cloud Sonnet 3.7 that came out in that time period, which is a lot more human-like, a lot more artist, practitioner, software engineer-like, and it does write great code. See, the word beautiful code, I don't think any two software engineers will agree on what beautiful code is.
It's pretty much like amazing cinema. Two people might not agree.
Correct, exactly. Right? Two foodies might not like the same dish, right? So it's like that. But I do think that, like, I think if you look at the median, if you look at the average quality of code that is coming out of these models, I would not use the word beautiful, but I think they are getting closer to what a good seasoned human would spit out.
You know, say when UiPath now hires young developers, young software developers, young coders, which are some of the skill sets that you guys are looking at? There's this one thing which is doing the rounds a lot nowadays, that is prompt engineering, of course. But say some of the underrated skill sets that the young developers can train themselves in. Yeah.
I think UiPath, our objective has been to hire smart people, not necessarily for a skill, but for culture fit, intelligence, engineers who are sharp, creative, hungry, and who are willing to work and collaborate with teams and solve problems, right? Because if you have those ingredients, you can learn anything, right? Especially if you're young. Prompt engineering wasn't a thing 3 years ago. But guess what? The same kids who are exceptionally talented, exceptionally creative, exceptionally curious are the same people who are getting proficient at building AI software, right? So our tact has always been to hire people for their, I'm going to say intelligence. I don't know if it's a fashionable word to say anymore. Hire people for intelligence, EQ, collaborativeness, team spirit, humility, the ability to just grind and work hard. Take those skills, doesn't matter what their specific skill set is, right? We don't hire people for like a 6-month contract. We're hiring people to help redefine our company in this Act 2 moment that I talked to you about. And for that, you need these skills. People who can learn quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, for you at UiPath, it's been a year now.
Yes.
You mentioned the Act 1, the Act 2, which is incoming as well.
Yes.
If you can, in that 1 year, or even before that, say something that happened that attracted you more towards the company as well. Give us 1 or 2 case studies of the work that UiPath has done with robotics, with Agentic AI, that the team, that your team are really proud of.
Yes. So a couple of things. We talked about both of these things today. It's very,
On stage?
It's on stage. Yeah. I think these are the two key differentiators. So I think I can. So one of the things is the difficulty with building agents. See, building agents that work in demos are not hard. We've all seen agents that work in demos. I talked about AI washing. Taking these agents that work in demos and deploying them in production is an incredibly difficult problem, right? In other words, building dependable agents is very hard, right? So one of the very specific things we've built in our platform, and because of our learnings and our prowess, I guess, our experience in low code development and back office unattended automation, is we've taken the tact of helping our developers build agents that they can depend upon to work reliably. So there's very specific things we've done, and I don't want to get too much into the technical nitty-gritties and weeds of this, but suffice to say at a high level, you give your agent a score, a number, 60 out of 100, which tells you how good of a agent it is, right? And we break that down in some categories, and we provide the developer with clear assistance and guided experiences and recommendations to say, hey, you can improve the score from 60 to something else, 65, if you did these things. Right. And so we have this guided experience to iteratively improve the quality of your agents by understanding the intent of the problem that is being solved and understanding the specific nature of the issues that might exist and guiding and building this guided experience. This is novel. I think this is, I'd say, industry leading. It's pretty creative work that the team has done to build this. And we're going to muscle this up and make this better and better and so on. So in our world, to summarize that one bit is to really guide the developer to build agents that work, not just demos, but in production. That's one thing. The other bit is because of, again, our experience with business processes, I think allowing the developer to understand and differentiate between deterministic bits and non-deterministic bits, which is such an important thing. I think in the world of agents, because of all of the hype that existed a couple of years ago, or even now, in some cases, the fact that, agents can go around and build out a workflow isn't the lived reality of our customers. It's a very difficult thing to get right. So building a workflow, composing that of parts that are deterministic with robots, parts that are non-deterministic with large language models and agents, and putting that together in a workflow that you can build and author in a product experience that is low code friendly, consistent with what our customers are familiar with, is another significant differentiator that we're building to really help customers agentify their work processes in a very pragmatic way, in a very thoughtful way. So we have, to be honest, UiPath, we have a very humble approach to agentifying the workforce. We do not believe that agents will hit the world anytime soon. We want to be very pragmatic. We want to help our customers not be AI washed. We want our customers to succeed with the POCs that they're building with agents, right? In a very pragmatic and thoughtful way. And the couple of capabilities we announced today is aligned with our strategy and approach in terms of supporting and helping customers.
Supporting and helping customers. You mentioned building agents that actually do the work and not just for demo. There's this one question that I want to ask you and I'll give this Indian example. So many of the industry leaders, when I speak to them in India, they say Agentic AI is definitely here to stay. And one of the key industries where it can make a lot of change is quick commerce, 10-minute delivery apps, quick delivery apps. Now, if I'm not wrong, I have read and heard in a lot of platforms that quick commerce and 10 delivery apps has just become a success in India. Nowhere else. Is that true?
I think so. I haven't seen it. Maybe Southeast Asia, perhaps, but I haven't seen it anywhere else.
Not the Western countries. Says something a little bit about kind of the laziness of India, but that's a different conversation altogether. So since that industry is out of the picture, it's not really happening. Can you tell us, say one or two or some of the industries where you think agents will cause the maximum amount of stir?
Yeah. So many examples. I think so. Claims processing and insurance industries. Right?
Insurance claims.
Claims. I think that's such a textbook example of something that will be dramatically agentified. Like, I think that is a part where humans should just probably manage exceptions, where agents and workflows, again, agents with deterministic robots together, workflows, agentic automation. I think those will just do it. I think that's one. Customer support, case deflection, customer support management, right? I think that is absolutely a category that agents will eat, right? Again, humans will probably manage exceptions and keep the agents performing well. So this is where, yeah. So I think that's another category. Education, right? My kids, I have high school kids. My kids use the GPTs to assist them with their homeworks, and some people wonder like, are you helping your kids cheat? And my answer to that is no. This is how the world's going to work. So brace up. Like this is what rather my kids learn to use these tools and use them as assistants and aids, right? So look, I think there's insurance, there's medical record summarization, in the medical field, there's customer support management, there's human resources management, employee onboarding scenarios, in finance. Oh man, there's so many use cases. I think there's to be honest, it's very hard to think of use cases which will not be agentified. But I think there's a few that will agentify first. And I think the examples that I gave you are the ones that I think.
Quick question that I want to ask you. You mentioned the industries, say, when it comes to insurance, when it comes to claims, when it comes to finance, there's a lot of personal data involved. There is money involved. And we've got to a stage already where agents are autonomous on their own. So how do you ensure, because UiPath build agents on your own as well, how do you ensure that there's bias is not happening? How do you ensure that that the autonomous agent is not taking decisions that it's not supposed to?
Yeah, it's a good question. Something we think about all of the time. It's something our customers think about all of the time. Agents non-deterministic, they can do exactly the kinds of things you describe. Hallucinate, make shit up, do whatever. So this two or three things that we think about at UiPath, and I think it's not uncommon. I think many other companies, many other tech companies think about the same thing. The first is guardrails. Like I think the business persona, the business user, or the developer who has built the agent must define guardrails. They must define the behaviors that is acceptable of an agent, right? So agents have a reasoning trajectory. Call tool A, and then after tool A, call tool B, call tool C. Call tool C. When you call tool C, don't call it if the value of the call is something X, right? So all of these things should be formulated or will be formulated as policy. And then if the agent approaches a different trajectory or calls this tool with a different thing, that then a human should be escalated to, or a deterministic system should take over at that point, right? So guardrails are a very, very important part to make sure that agents don't veer off and do weird things, hallucinate and interact with the environment in ways that you didn't intend it to, right? By the way, these things happen with regular software also. It's not just with agents, right? Agents with guardrails, with proper guardrails, is like regular software. Regular software has bugs. Bugs can cause So that's one piece. The second bit is, and I think this is the very important piece, is to have your agent do something simple in a single-minded fashion. Don't have your agents do too many complicated things. Don't build a multi-agent thing. Don't build a complex workflow inside of an agent. Take a very specific thing, a very single-minded thing, like a thing that routes requests, like a thing that summarizes a document. Make that an agent so that you can control the quality of that as an individual entity, than control the quality of an overall thing. So remember, when you stitch 5 different probabilistic systems together, you multiply the probabilities of each call downstream, it'll be a less reliable system than one simple system, right? So the second bit is absolutely like building very simple-minded agents, and then grow from there. Put them in a workflow with robots, and then go from there. The third bit is always have humans in the loop. Always observe and manage the agent's behaviors. This is a practice that many of our enterprise customers have, and we promote that they have. Look at the trajectory of reasoning of agents. Look at the outcomes of what the agents have performed. Validate it. Give us feedback on it. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Thumbs down, improve your agent. Thumbs up, great. That's positive reinforcement that we can make the agents better. These are just 3 examples. Context is another one, by the way. The context that you provide to your agent must be rounded, right? We must know that the agent doesn't make things up from the context. We should make sure that the context is pertinent to the problem that are being solved, right? So ensuring that the agent has the right context for the job is another critical thing. It's a more technical solution to what I'm describing. But taken together, guardrails, proper context, single-mindedness, and humans in the loop are the critical ingredients to ensure that you build agents that are dependable, reliable, and don't veer off weird trajectories and go off in the netherworld, if you will. Right?
You mentioned the guardrails, which are so important. I have spoken to a lot of industry leaders that have also said this technology that is being used to ensure that the agents don't hallucinate. There are other agents, almost like a supervising AI, that ensures that takes care of that.
Yes, I mean, that's one way of doing guardrails. I think there's like I mentioned, at UiPath, we have a very humble approach to everything. There's a very pragmatic, simple thing, and there's a more complex thing. The pragmatic, simple thing is to provide deterministic guardrails, right? Guess what? If you have an agent that applies guardrails, that agent can also
hallucinate.
And then you need a guardrail for a guardrail for a guardrail for a guardrail, and then you have reason runs out.
Yeah.
Reason runs out, right? So I think at some point you have to break that recursion by having something deterministic, a very clean policy. So our advice to our customers, and we offer both, by the way, our advice to customers is to build deterministic guardrails where possible and agentic guardrails when deterministic guardrails are not possible. This is the exact same philosophy we have with our workflows too. Build deterministic components to your workflows where possible. And if it's not possible, then use agents.
When your team at UiPath are designing these systems, how do you juggle things like, say cost, latency, explainability, especially when agents are working with extremely sensitive enterprise data, acting on their own?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think what we are seeing with customers is so first off, I think latency, cost, and quality of response are all trade-offs. You use a reasoning model like a GPT-4o or a one of the more complex reasoning models. They cost you a bunch. They're slower. They're high latency, but the quality of response is higher. Right? For many use cases, that is appropriate. Right? So what we are finding is many of our customers, given just the opportunity with agents, I think I shouldn't overgeneralize this. Some of our customers are comfortable paying a higher price for higher quality agents, which means it may be slower, it may take longer, it may be slightly costlier. But given that these are back office automations, where no human is waiting for the response because these things are just chugging along the back end, it's okay. As long as it works reliably, we'll take it, right? But ultimately, as agents become more popular, enterprises will, more of the enterprises, I mean, many already care about this. The cost latency trade-off is about choosing the right model for the job. So our job as a technology company, as a company that provides and builds agents and builds automations, is to assist the developer and the business user to use the right model for the job. So if you have a very simple and single-minded agent, you probably need a simpler model like a Llama 7 billion parameter model and so forth, right? Which is cheaper, faster. Win-win. You get the quality of response you want, but it's also not expensive. It's also quick, right? But if you have a more complex reasoning job, then perhaps we'll recommend you to use a reasoning model, right? Where cost might not be a consideration because the value of what you provide is high, right? So these are trade-offs, and we're all learning to navigate these trade-offs. The thing that I think will be innovative, if any company can pull it off, is to automatically choose model, given a business user's provided intention of cost quality trade-offs, right? Cost quality and reliability trade-offs. I think it's a tricky one to get completely right. It's currently more art than science. Model selection is more art than science, and I suspect that over the next some time it'll become more science, less art. But I don't think it'll ever be all science.
Okay, I have a big picture question. Do you think we'll see, say, whole businesses, enterprises, units run by agents with humans who will just be stepping in for judgment calls, as you mentioned? How close are we to living that reality already?
Oh, I don't think it's happening today. I think autonomous agents really don't exist today. I think your big picture question though is will this happen? And I think the only correct answer is yes. I think the hard part of the question is when, and I think your guess is as good as mine. Look, I think it'll happen in phases though, right? So if you think about it, 30 years ago, companies didn't have CTO, enterprise companies didn't have heads of IT, for example. IT wasn't a thing 30 years ago. So companies, industries, businesses transform, and I think AI will transform business units and functions in significant ways. I think at a probably more compressed timeline than the 30-year example I gave you. But it will happen. But I think humans are resilient. The long arc of humanity, I think we will all be better off because of agents. I think we will go up. The human beings will go up the value chain as agents do a lot of these procedural, repeated things. And I think, like, give or take, some people will lose the jobs that they have, but they'll find the jobs that they want. I think that is a switch we'll have. It'll cause pain in the short term, but in the medium to long term, I think the world will be better off. I think I was telling you earlier, I think we will build better software faster. By definition, it has to just improve the quality of life, quality of the world, and provide fulfillment and opportunity to more people, not less. I'm kind of long-winded. I went all over the place here, but I think it is inevitable. I think 10 years from now, we'll look back and say, okay, that thing didn't exist, but it won't be, it will be in phases. And as humans will have the ability to adapt with it, sucking in some short-term pain along the way.
Say with agent-first architectures taking off, so what should the developers, the automation architects now, and even the IT leaders for that matter, what can they start skilling themselves up on today?
Yeah, it's a good question, and one that I have conversations on with my own teams and with other customers' teams as well. So look, I think automation developers, for example, I think, like, there is a 500-hour rule that we have. Is like, if you prompting for 500 hours, you'll actually get good at it. Prompting is art and science. It's actually more art. It's actually far more art than science, right? So one of the things that every automation developer should do is to really build that instinct for models. And the only way to create it, it's not by reading a book. The only way to create this instinct is take this 500 hour or 1,000 hour, pick your number, in that ballpark of a thing, is to give that a whirl and understand, what are the capabilities of agents, what are the capabilities of models, and how you could utilize this in your work, in your automations, and so on. Who was the second discipline? I think you mentioned automation architects.
Yes.
Okay. Automation architects have to understand how to compose agents in their workflows, right? Just like systems design is about building specific subsystems that do one thing really well, I think we need to have automation architects evolve to, and I think many of them already are, understand where specifically agents in these systems play a role. And really, the single-minded thing I talked about, I'll keep coming back to it. Build that single-minded agent that does that one thing really well. Having the ability to distinguish between an agent that you want to specially deploy for a part of your automation separately from your robot requires architectural and senior thinking that these automation architects should provide, I think.
Yeah. You mentioned this already in your answer, but I still want to ask you, who better than you to ask this question, because you've been in industry for so many years now. How crucial and important is responsible AI really going to be? And what is UiPath doing to ensure that?
Yeah, I think responsible AI is table stakes. There's no AI without responsible AI, quite honestly. I think the things I talked to you about earlier, guardrails, single-minded agents, humans in the loop, are part of making sure AI does things responsibly. But there's other things too. Customers care for their data not to be used in training models. Customers care that their customers' data or PII information, organizational information, is not leaking out of the whatever zone of control that they care about. So I think in order for businesses to build trust, so that then you can agentify, to your early question, agentify entire departments in a phased manner, allowing humans to make the shifts, requires that business leaders have the trust that AI is purposefully and responsibly moving their agenda forward, right? There is no AI without responsible AI in my mind, especially in enterprise software.
So on the ground level, when you guys are deploying agentic AI at such a large scale, what have been some of the very major challenges, like hairiest challenges? Data privacy, decision explainability, what? I
think all of those things. I think I talked about guardrails. I think building the correct guardrails is an important thing. I talked about single-minded agents. Choosing the single-minded agents and making sure that the agent is the simplest thing that you can build is a incredibly hard problem. Explainability, I think you brought that up. I think it's an important point too. I think there is still some art science mix there Explainability in that, like the trajectory of reasoning that the agent used to interact with the environment, I think that is a semi-solved or close to solved problem. I think there's all kinds of systems that can go do that. But you can't still look inside of the LLM's brain to understand how it achieved the outcome that it did. That is a problem that we have to solve along with large language foundation model providers. And there's a whole bunch of work happening, I know, in that field to help make AI more explainable. There's a whole discipline that's formed to go do that. But yeah, I think, to summarize, I think guardrails, humans in the loop, trusting enterprise data to really just do the kinds of things that they want us to do with the data, so important to build trust with the enterprise.
Raghu, as I was mentioning, even before UiPath, you worked at companies which have quite literally changed the world. You've led engineering at Microsoft, Meta, now UiPath. So how has your thinking around, say, building these AI systems evolved over the years, especially now with agents becoming central?
Yes. This is a very, very good question. And I think it's one of those things that sort of people like myself have organically done it without a lot of intention. But like now that I reflect on it, I think there is some pattern to this. Look, I think over the years, back in the day, AI was more ML, meaning you built models with like PhDs and all that to solve very specific problems. Like if you've seen a simple example would be Facebook's feed. How do the posts show up in an order that it does? It's a machine learning problem, right? It requires a very specialized skill set, very specialized way of experimenting with your models and so forth, right? See, the transition to AI, especially over the last year, is I think is as much an engineering problem as it is a ML problem, right? Prompting is not a traditional thing you learn in ML school, right? And I think a lot, and as these large language models get better and better and better, I think it's very clear to us that the job of a ML practitioner shifts to model improvement and fine tuning, which is in addition to engineering, in addition to making sure that we understand the system in which the agent is deployed, working closely with the engineering teams, improving prompting, continuously learning from your online feedback on how your models are doing, and continuously improving it. In the past, you've improved your models. Now you have to improve the prompts, which requires a slightly different skill than historical ML. This isn't to say ML is going away. I think the people who are building these large language models are hardcore ML engineers, and they're quite frankly changing the world. But AI practitioners require, it's a lot more engineering in the nature of the problem with AI now than it was in the past. So when we have open roles at UiPath, we look for people with sort of 1 foot in engineering and 1 foot in AI, so that you transcend kind of like domains and solve problems more end to end. Quite not unlike if you had a full stack engineer who can build UI and a backend system. I think it's, I don't think the industry has given these guys a name. Engineers, AI engineers, I guess is the word that comes to mind. 1 foot in AI, 1 foot in engineering. I think that's the future of AI engineering. And our full stack engineers and AI engineers, I think, are the future of engineering, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Which kind of takes me to the phrase which a lot of industry leaders have spoken as well, that humans working with AI.
Yeah.
So it's not just going to be AI, it's
Right.
not just going to be engineering, but when both come together, that is when it'll be world-changing work.
No, absolutely. I think if you've looked at these code assistant and these assistants that developers have used to either improve their code or wipe code, these are assistants. Ultimately, the human is still in charge. They look at the output of these agents, and I think these agents are force multipliers for them. Humans are more software, more productivity, and higher up the value chain for all disciplines, especially for software engineering. I think this is where the software engineering discipline is probably in the forefront right now of agentifying their work, right? I think the other verticals and other businesses will catch up. At UiPath, Daniel, myself, and a few other leaders have talked about, as we look at our Act 2, we obviously want to agentify our company, and we want to be the leader in doing that. So one of the big things that Daniel is pushing for, which I'm so supportive of, is to put the wheels in motion for agentifying UiPath beyond just the product and engineering disciplines.
Absolutely. Raghu, before we let you go, two quick questions that I want to get your answers from, that I want to, search your head a little on. You moved to the States 24 years back, if I'm not wrong?
Yeah.
2001?
24 years ago, yeah.
Firstly, though, off camera, we were talking. Now, the reason behind his moving is the most incredible story possible. So if you can tell us, why did you go to US the first time?
Yes. So my girlfriend at the time and wife now decided that the US is where she wants to, spend a few years and develop a career. I was going to go join my father's business. My father and brothers, they have a business. But since she did that, I said, you know what, I have a degree in engineering. I might as well pursue that alongside her. So I went along with her. She and I thought we were going to come back in 2 years. She told me we're going to come back in 2 years. But as we spent time, one thing led to the other, and it became more and more difficult for us to come back. We had kids very early. I was 25 when we had a boy. So it just, when you have kids and all that, it becomes tricky. But I'll tell you, the first year in the US was quite the mess in my head. There's a fracture in your head. It's like your roots are in India. You grew up there. Everything I talked to you about, the smells, the people, your family, and the new world in the US and all that. I mean, it's a massive conflict. There's a few good things here and a great many good things there. But anyway, we fought the conflict, we fought the fight, and for better or for worse, we decided to stay in the US.
So I think Microsoft, Meta, and UiPath really have the better half to thank for this.
I think so. If it was just to me, we would probably not. We'd probably be in the. These companies would still thank me. They still have viable businesses in India. Microsoft is pretty big. Meta has opened a new office here, and UiPath. I should tell you this: UiPath's second largest product and engineering team is in India after Romania and Bucharest. Amazing. It's bigger than the US.
Wow. And where do they sit?
In Bangalore, in Bellandur.
In Bellandur?
And Hyderabad and Jaipur. Now, we acquired a company that has a small presence in Jaipur.
Lovely. Well. I'm so glad that you mentioned this, because the next question itself that I want to ask you is that you moved to the States 24 years back. There's this one thing that a lot of industry leaders have spoken to me as well, that even when they were in the States, say late 90s, early 2000s, one reaction they would get is, oh, how do you speak such good English? So I just want to ask you, how did the States look at India back then at the start of the millennium? And how does the Silicon Valley look at India now?
The Indians that have moved to the US since the 60s when the immigration thing opened up, were mostly college educated Indians who took more professional jobs. Like they were doctors or trained to be engineers, trained to be lawyers and things like that. Mostly doctors in engineering was, I think, in the beginning, the main fields. These professionals are higher income. They don't run into trouble with the law type of people, right? So the respect for Indians as members of the community who paid their taxes on time, contributed positively, has existed. But it was a very small community, I think 20, 25 years ago. Not as didn't have the political clout at all. But I think the community has grown in a very significant way. The city I live in, Seattle, Redmond, I think the number of Indians has probably grown tenfold in the time that I've been there. At all levels. Satya Nadella is in that area. He's the CEO of Microsoft, right? At all levels, young Indians, seasoned Indians, senior Indians, Indians in middle management, and so forth. So I think the clout that Indians have now is substantially higher than it did some 2 decades ago. So I think they wield a lot more political influence than they did 20 years ago. I think the community is well respected broadly. And I think as with any large country with millions of people, there's people who have disregard and hate, if you will. It's not abnormal. I think it happens in India, just like it happens in any other country that exists. But that's not because humans are sometimes humans. Xenophobia exists in every place and country, right? In different ways. But largely, Indians are a very accepted community from what I've seen. And there's a lot of love from my colleagues and peers who are not Indians towards Indians and the other way around. A lot of respect. And I think that's the transformation that I have seen. I don't think I think most people will share this opinion. You asked other Indians this question, they might have a different perspective. So I'd urge you to ask this question to others that you run into.
I definitely will.
Yeah.
Who live there would be the best option. Under the India AI mission, Bangalore-based startup itself, Sarvam AI, has been picked to build India's first own foundational model. Your take on that? How crucial was this for India's own AI scene?
I think it's great. I think it's fantastic that India. It's about time. I think you need the right problem to solve. You need the right team, and you need the right sponsors. And I think that triangulation, getting a team that has the capability to do something like this, is such a foundational thing. I think, I talked to you about AI engineering. I think India will easily transform to AI engineering, right? One foot in AI, one foot in engineering. I do think for India, so if you looked at the transition that we've seen in China over the last 10 years, they are higher up the AI value chain than India is, quite frankly, catching up with the US. So I love that India has this thing kicking off, but we need to multiply this by a dozen in the next 3 years and 100 in the next 5 years. I would love for India to be at that space where it's seen as a China level place for AI talent and AI engineering and innovation. And I think it's going to get there. Quite frankly, I think for the quality of talent that we have here, people, passion, energy, the agency that people have, the creativity, I think with the right teams forming and the right money following the right teams, I think this is a matter of time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Last question, Raghu, before we let you go. Both from a personal perspective and, say, representing UiPath, a message for the youngsters out there, could be anywhere from the country, from the world, who are getting into the industry, wanting to build something on their own, wanting to build something in Agentic AI. One message from UiPath, from yourself.
Yeah, work hard is grind. There's no substitute for the grind, I think is the easy answer. I think it applies to everyone. I think the second one is find a use case that you can build something dependable and reliable in the agent world. Don't AI wash, right? Don't build a demo. Build something that you believe that you have the ability to convert to something very substantial and real for a narrow segment of the market that you must start with. These are very general things, but I think there's a couple of things here that I hope I know many founders think in the same terms. So this is probably a very boilerplate answer, but you'd be surprised how many are just wanna go after a problem to solve without having the passion and conviction. So I think obviously follow the passion, follow the conviction, pick a narrow vertical, but think about building something that works.
Think about building something that works indeed. Raghu, it was such a delight to have this conversation with you. I'm dead sure the viewers feel the same way as well. How was the chat for you?
It was fantastic. I love the questions. It got me thinking, especially the India question that you asked. I think, I am an Indian. I grew up here and I need to think about it more. Like, what role can I play to help India, like with UiPath and others to help accelerate that? So great, thoughtful conversation. And I have a lot to think about from following up from this.
Thank you so much. We are glad we were able to do that. And all the best and congratulations to UiPath. You all are already doing some really path-breaking work and we can't wait to see what comes in the future as well.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. Do tell us in the comments which were your favorite parts from the podcasts. I had so many. I'm going to write them down as well. And yes, subscribe to AIM TV for more such content just like this. This is me, Korak and Raghu, signing off. Subscribe to us because think AI, think AIM.